All right, what's up, everyone? This is Zach, and I'm here today with Lucas Winkler. Lucas, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, Zach. Thanks for having
Good.
me on.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming by. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, so Lucas is a realtor, crushing it in the real estate game, and that's what he does, on a day-to-day basis, but also just someone that I know has a great mindset, great attitude, and just great approach to life. So we're really happy to have him on to kind of share some of his experiences. But
Yeah.
Lucas, do you mind like talking a little bit about your background, what you're up to, who you are a little bit?
Yeah, so I grew up in Plymouth pretty much all my life.
Yeah.
Went to Bird Elementary School, then West, and then Plymouth, the crazy Plymouth Canton Salmons. I played golf throughout high school, played hockey since I was about 5 years old.
Yep.
Um, it was fun, awesome, great community to grow up in, and I'm excited where I get to kind of branch some of my business into my old network and rekindle those relationships. So that's what's really fun for me. Now I'm a full time real estate agent, but it didn't go, it didn't go like that right away. I started off my first job ever was caddy at Meadowbrook Country Club.
Yep.
So I did that ever since 2008. 12 years old, about 5 foot nothing. Carried about 50-pound bags on my back. So it was a great experience because one, I loved golf, so I loved watching golf. And then two, I made great connections out there. So if I could encourage anybody out there to at least do one thing, for their business world, it's definitely to network and get
Yeah.
out and talk to people. You never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to shake hands with. So, I think that was a good kind of base for me. From there, I went to actually knocking doors for AT&T, selling cable, phone, and internet. So that was an experience in and of itself.
Yeah.
Um, Not exactly from the pay side. I mean, it was definitely hard, no doubt,
Right.
but it taught me to be kind of, I guess the best way to put it is being comfortable being uncomfortable.
Okay.
So I was able to kind of get rid of some of my nerves that, it's really hard to deal with when you're in, a sales environment
Yeah.
through that. And, there were so many different business tactics that I had learned through doing that. So overall, I would say it was a good change in my life, even though, okay, it didn't work out. It definitely gave me a good base to, know that I was going to be in some sort of sales position. So from there, I actually went and did 2 years as a jewelry consultant at MJ Diamonds.
Okay.
So, I had already gotten some face to face door knocking experience. Now I was doing kind of face to face retail,
Yeah.
but still, utilizing some of those skills from the previous two jobs, really,
Right.
as a caddy and then as a door to door. And that's what kind of led me into real estate. I took 2 years at Schoolcraft Community College. After that, I decided I wanted to work full time. So I started getting my real estate license as I was still working at the jewelry store, and then just kind of really went full range. My first 6 months, I didn't have any sales. After that point, when I got my first one, it was kind of like the domino effect. All
Yeah.
the things that I had been doing at the beginning of my business, and it's tough, tough not getting a paycheck
Right.
for 6 months. So everybody says it's all glam, it's all glory, this is awesome, get your real estate license,
Yeah.
but it's just that's not the case. Just like anything else, you got to put the work in. So yeah, I guess that's it for the background.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate you kind of saying that, Lucas. Like you said, everyone thinks real estate's this glamorous, amazing career. And I mean, don't get us wrong. It's great. And I know like you love it, just from talking to you and you're really passionate about it. But I'm sure, and like you said, there's so many struggles with getting into it and, just you're you're not selling like small ticket items anymore. Like a house is expensive, it takes a lot to sell, I'm sure.
Absolutely, for sure. When you break down a real estate transaction,
Hmm.
residential, you're talking 60 to 90 days, and that's from the initial point of contact, to close. Um, but everybody's different.
Yeah,
I'm still working with some clients that I have had since I started.
right.
Um, but it's important to, keep up with everybody and, make sure everybody's doing well. And is there anything you can do to help? I've noticed the more I make my business about helping people, the more success I get. And not only monetarily, but just like that feeling.
Yeah,
I like talking to people. I like getting out and kind of branching off. So that was that was nice to kind of find that fit in real estate for me. Where for others, some people, aren't as motivated to get out and talk to people and maintain relationships. But I found good success in that. So it's something I definitely enjoy.
definitely. And I know you kind of mentioned in your background, just the importance of networking from a business standpoint. And, I totally agree. And something that I think is really cool about you, Lucas, is like you're you're really good naturally at just connecting with people. And I don't think it never comes across, disingenuous or like, I'm just trying to sell you something or like, get to a ulterior motive. It's just friendly conversation. And even, I know with you in real estate, like I've talked to some people and suggested and recommended you and your business, and those people have said good things about you and positive experiences.
I'm glad to hear that. That's
Yeah.
it puts a smile on my face. You can't see through the audio, but I've got a big smile on my face. So yeah, yeah. I mean, it's tough to say. Okay, real estate is so one-sided because there's
Hmm.
so many different ways you can take it. There's
Yeah.
the investing side, there's the commercial side, there's the residential side. There's a lot of different aspects of real estate
Yeah.
where it's tough because you want to try and grab it all at once, but at the same time, I read a book. It's called The One Thing,
Okay.
uh, and Gary Keller, actually, our broker at Keller Williams, he or the owner, I'm sorry, the owner at Keller Williams, he states in the book, he says, if you try and catch two rabbits, you might catch neither, right? So
Hmm.
that always set in with me when I was in my early stages in my career, because it kind of set the pace to focus in on one thing and master that before moving on to the other, rather than having such a disorganized sense of, oh, they used to call it drinking from the fire hose is what they
Yeah.
said when I started learning things at Keller Williams. But yeah, super happy with my brokerage. Initially, I was very confused, very as anybody really would be.
Right.
um, but as you start to grasp the concepts and kind of formulate your own version of success, whether that's setting a schedule, whether that's making calls, just maintaining relationships, things like that. um, it's important to kind of stay in touch with what your business is doing, and keeping up with what that way you can kind of identify what's working and what's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think that's so important. And now, I know that you are a realtor with Keller Williams. Like, are you, so I know like that's like the company that you're under,
Mhm.
but are you kind of like your own business too at the end of the day?
In a way. So I'm a real estate agent.
Yep.
I work as a single agent for Keller Williams. So I'm a independent contractor,
Okay.
where you like I could be with any brokerage that I want.
Hmm.
And I've heard other things about other brokerages. It just seemed like this was the best fit for me. I love
Yeah.
the ability to connect. Even when we were going through the pandemic last year, we found ways to do our office meetings through Zoom or Skype or whatever it was. And I'm just happy with how well connected, where other brokerages sometimes aren't. You get a lot of agent experiences because every agent's in a different deal, and they
Yeah.
can share certain things. Obviously there's stuff that has to be confidential, but learning experiences nonetheless. So there's a good like brain of networking individuals that come from that brokerage, and that's why I chose them.
That's awesome. Yeah. It sounds like you get a lot of great kind of mentorship and just resources as well that just help you kind of grow on your personal journey too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So, you know, I guess maybe you personally, at this moment or maybe more in the future, what are your current goals, whether that's real estate driven or just personal goals?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, everybody is looking for, some form of financial freedom,
Yeah,
whatever that means to someone. So it'd be nice, to get to that point where I'm like, okay, I've saved up enough money. I've, got these liabilities, these assets, and then kind of, obviously that as anybody wants to, start a family at some point.
right,
Maintain some level of business in my real estate, whether it's, investing or sticking on. Right now, I specialize in residential.
right,
Um, so my goal right now is to just get as good as I can, between negotiating, between finding the right properties, between, all these different aspects that are within residential real estate. So for right now, really just working on my craft. At some point, um, I probably will want to get my broker's license
okay.
and branch off a little bit more. So that looks a little bit different than what I'm doing now. Um, but in due time, yeah, for sure,
Definitely.
something I thought about. So
Awesome. Yeah. And so, with specializing in residential and like you said, just working on your craft, I guess to my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it's one of those things that really to improve your craft, it's whatever you put in, that's what you're going to get out. Like you can dump hundreds of hours into it and you'll probably get a lot out of it. Or if you're like, I want to kind of, just hang out this week and take it easy, you're probably not going to get as much out of it, right?
exactly, yeah, it's kind of it's a pay to play system in that
Yeah.
retrospect of work. Yeah, you're 100% right. What you put in is what you get out. Um, I know a lot of agents sometimes struggle with that because
Hmm.
they're so used to maybe a 9 to 5 job, and then they're like, oh well, it's time to stop working. Their
Yeah.
body gets in that way where sometimes I find myself, as crazy as it sounds, up at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night with some clients, and
Oh,
I
wow.
don't mind it. I don't mind it because when they have questions, and you're making the biggest purchase of your life, or selling, your first house ever. These are
Yeah.
these are big moments. So I want to make sure, I can do all I can, now to, do the best that I can for my clients.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like just knowing you as a friend and hearing about your experiences with other people, helping them with, buying a house or selling a house, like it can just it's really apparent how much you care and how willing you are to help, in any way that you can. And I think that's awesome to see.
I agree. Thanks, man. Yeah, I
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
of course. So, and it might be hard to kind of quantify, but how much time do you think you put into your job? Whether that's a day or weekly.
Well, again, it varies.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's tough to determine it because,
Hmm.
like, when I'm on the road, when I'm driving, yeah, I track my miles and stuff like that, but I don't consider that like working so much as if
Right.
I'm, answering emails, doing paperwork, on the phone with a client.
Right.
Um, if I had to total up my hours, I'd say, excluding driving, probably a good 45 to 50 hours a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I'll be the first one to say it seems like whenever I'm talking to you, just in general, you're always going from somewhere or coming back. So I know you're busier on the clock.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And now, Lucas, a lot of people, around our age, maybe a little younger, maybe a little older, they're at that point in life where they're looking to make that first big purchase, whether that's like right now or coming up. Do you have any advice for, people that are looking to maybe become first-time home buyers or maybe even just renting their first place? Anything with kind of finding that next step for them?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times, it's not a bad idea, right out of college. Obviously a lot of people go through the process of whatever it may be, student loans
Hmm.
or, housing, things like that. So initially when you get out of college, you're like, oh wait, a credit score, report, all this stuff. This seems kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Um, the best thing to do is just kind of break it down. Look at the pros and cons. When you're renting, there's less liability, right? Like if your furnace goes out or something like that, um, 9 times out of 10, the landlord's going to be replacing that stuff. They're bigger fixes.
Hmm.
And you're thinking short term, so really depending on if you're, and again, everybody's situation is different, but if you're planning on being in one spot for quite some time, it may be a good idea to purchase a house. If you see yourself moving quite a bit, whether it's because of your job or family or this or that, um, maybe it's better to rent because you don't know how long your time will be there. And even at the end of the day, let's say you did purchase the property, you're like, oh, I'm changing jobs, I'm moving out of state, something like that. It's good to own a property. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, if you own that property, obviously you have to go through the process of changing your taxes, things like that. But you could rent out the property, and have that asset there where maybe you're even cash flowing out of it, and having that mortgage paid for. So there's, again, pros and cons of purchasing a property versus renting a property. But it all depends on your situation. The best thing to do is kind of evaluate your situation, talk it over with an agent, preferably me, but and really get to the depth of your plan so you can customize
Yeah.
it and tailor it for yourself.
Definitely. I think that's so important. I mean, I know that for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of people around our age or situation, they might think like there's this like cookie cutter path that they have to follow. But really, like you said, everyone's path is so individual. It's just to see where they're at in life and what's important to them and evaluate from there.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Definitely. And, another thing that I really like that you brought up is just the idea of it's really if you do purchase property, it's an investment, whether you're living in it or just from the get-go renting it out. Um, I feel like a lot of people, when they hear investment, they think of like stocks and, all that stuff. But really, property's a great investment.
absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of people ask, hey Lucas, is it a good time to buy an investment property?
Hmm.
With purchase price is so high, and I guess a good counter to that would be, hey, but interest rates have never been so low. So the payment on that property, versus this same property,
Right.
with interest rates that high, the payment actually might be higher. Um, so again, it depends on what your total plan is for the property. Another good thing to do, obviously, is talk to a lender,
Hmm.
kind of get a good grasp on, okay, what can I budget here, and how can I get to that next step of. Um, that's it's a great starting point.
Definitely. No, I appreciate giving that kind of tidbit of information to the listeners. That's definitely helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm kind of just thinking maybe out loud a little bit here, but when it comes to, getting a piece of property, um, do you think like is it better to buy a house that's already fully, established and really already put together, or is it sometimes a better idea to get something that might be a bit of a more of a fixer upper, but might be a better price?
Well, it depends on your threshold. Like we said
Yeah.
earlier, it's 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 all dependent on your situation.
Okay.
Some people coming in, they're super busy with work. They may be working 10 to 12 hours a day, and they're like, I don't have time to mow my lawn. I don't have time to, do these things. And in that case, maybe something like a townhome or a condo, with an association that covers things like that,
Yeah.
may be in their better interest, and in terms of, how they want to do it.
Hmm.
um, it really depends on the threshold. If you're going to get a fixer upper, that you're going to put money into it.
Yeah.
um, if you get something that's turnkey, you're going to minimize the time that you need to spend on it, right?
Right.
So if you've got extra time and you're looking to start a project or invest, it's good to, again, get with a professional, a
Yeah.
realtor that can give you the comparables in the area, what they've sold for, kind of see the trends in that area, and base, what they're offering on a specific house, and kind of get an idea of what it's going to cost you to like transform that place. If it's a fixer upper and you've got neighbors that just sold their house
Hmm.
for 200,000 and this property is listed, let's say, at 150, right?
Right.
So you've got that $50,000 gap, as long as the two homes are comparable, of course.
Yeah.
um, where you can decide, okay, if I put new floors in, if I put on a new roof, if I do this and this, my total costs are only 20,000. So that still leaves $30,000 worth of equity on the table.
Right.
When you have the home reappraised, refinanced, something like that, then you can see where your true value comes from. So again, totally dependent on the person's situation.
Right.
Um, if they're looking for something move-in ready, and that's usually the conversation, I'll have the first time with my clients and say, what is your goal? What's your
Hmm.
plan? Would you be open to, these things? That way we can kind of narrow down what's going to be the best for them.
Definitely. Yeah. And I love how much you focus on what's best for them because, right, what might be best for me is probably not, or not necessarily going to be best for the next person you talk to, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. So, like, assuming that, money's not really in the question and, we're just looking at an average person around our age, mid 20s, maybe late 20s, and they're a first time home buyer, not too familiar with it. Is there anything that you've seen as like something that a lot of people might not really consider or like that it might not have like registered like, oh, I need to think about this when it comes to buying a house?
Um, well, I think, it's important to look at, okay, your minimum payment.
Hmm.
How much are you going to be spending there? How much can it change over time? In Michigan, taxes are subject to change no more than 5% a year.
Okay.
But, over 30 years, if you're going to own the property for that long, it's good to know that that increase can happen, and then you can prepare for it.
Yeah.
So just making sure that you've got all your costs understood, and 9 times out of 10, the lender will have everything spelled out for you. But really paying attention to it, take it very seriously. It's going to be your property, so you want to make sure that it is, everything that it is, and then that way you kind of get a good start on, okay, maybe this is a good fit for me, maybe this is the better route for me, when it comes to doing like a rehab, or if you are looking to find something that's a little bit more turnkey or
Yeah.
new construction or something like that. Because it's even good, and I have some clients that say, I really, really want to fix her upper, and I show it to them, they do their numbers and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, this is kind of going to be a lot of work
Yeah.
with work, and like, well, it's good. That's why you look at your options, and then maybe we find something that's a little bit more turnkey for them, where they still can have like little projects, stuff
Hmm.
like that. But that way they're not putting so much time into that first year of owning a home, because it's like I said earlier, like drinking out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, this, and this, and this,
Yeah.
and it's important to just kind of calculate that beforehand. That way, you're prepared in the future. Um, so keeping an eye on your numbers for sure.
Hmm.
And then when it comes to properties, looking over the disclosures, trying to find out as much information as you can on the property, even prior to inspection,
Yeah.
because I feel like a lot of people are kind of surprised to hear. And technically, by uh, you know, uh, real estate, you don't have to necessarily get an inspection, but I highly recommend it. And there's a lot of things that can pop up that you're not sure, and it's good to have a professional kind of get a second look at it for you. That way you can determine, okay, over this 5 year or 10-year period that I want to own this house, these are the possible things that could happen in the future, or I might have to replace, or I might
Right.
have to maintain. Um, and you know that cost could be anywhere from 700 to 800 bucks. Usually three that I recommend to get. That's the general home, the radon, and the sewer scope.
Okay.
Um, and that could also depend if you're maybe out in the country a little bit more and you're looking at homes with well and septic. You can also get a well and septic inspection as opposed to a sewer scope. So
Gotcha.
um, factor in that cost beforehand. That way, you know, when you put the offer in the property, you already kind of know what you're looking for,
Yeah,
and then you just verify it with the inspector and, you know, get that second pair of eyes out there. So
definitely. And now, were you saying that like maybe on average the cost of inspection would be like 700 to 800?
roughly,
Okay.
and it could be more, it could be less. You know, it depends on who you go with and then how extensive their inspection goes.
Yeah.
Um, that's just kind of a rough ballpark estimate. But
Okay.
nonetheless, you know, when you're buying a house, there's all these other costs. So it's
Right.
nice to have that budgeted
Yeah,
and not be surprised later on when it does happen.
exactly.
And again, you don't technically have to have an inspection,
Right.
but I, again, wouldn't recommend doing something like that just because I'm not the professional when it comes to that deep digging. You know, if there's a crawl space, they'll get in the crawl space for you. They'll go up in the attic. They'll check out what's going on up there. You know, the sewers, obviously, nobody's probably checked them since they bought the house.
Right.
So all those things, you know, underlying are good to get checked out. That way you can kind of maximize the utmost in the negotiation process. So yeah, doing your homework. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if you do your homework, you're going to be off a lot better, right?
Yeah, definitely. And in the grand scheme, like even the higher end, like 800 bucks or something for an inspection, yeah, you might have to pay that, but I mean, what if they find something that would have cost you, $25,000 to fix? Like, it's better
Well,
to
and that's
find out now, right?
yeah, that's you hit it right on the nail with that one. So yeah, I mean, you know, we have the saying, you know, at Keller Williams, you know, it's $700 now, but it's better than $70,000 later.
Yeah,
So, um, yeah, I, I I say it's always good to, you know, get that done and you know, out of the way. That way, if everything goes smoothly, you can get to the closing table with no second thoughts and
right.
really be happy. You know, at the end of the day with your purchase, which is my goal
Yeah,
to get them to that finish line with nothing but a smile on their face.
definitely. And I would assume that if you have an inspection and something comes up, that might give you as the home buyer a little more leverage when it comes to negotiating and saying like, hey, like there's this issue, like let's get the cost down, right? Like, is that kind of how it can sometimes work?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, you know, when it comes to real estate is understanding your terms,
Okay.
right? So there's a lot of different ways you can negotiate into the deal. Like if it's going to be on a mortgage, you know, you can negotiate seller's concessions where the seller pays that credit at closing to the buyer for whatever it may be, closing costs, repairs, things like that.
Okay.
Um, and you know, you could do the purchase price. The purchase price, you know, is usually you know, the route that you'll go, but it really depends again on the situation and how the inspection looked and things like that.
Okay.
So you know, price could be a factor, terms could be a factor. Um, you know,
Yeah.
it really depends on, I guess, what is found.
Right.
And you know, in different markets, you'll have more leverage, right?
Hmm.
Right now, it's still considered a seller's market because there's such low inventory.
Yeah.
You know, and when you've got, you know, so many buyers agents showing the same property, um, you know, it leaves less leverage for the buyer at that point to negotiate. But when you're in a deal, and let's say you find something, um, there's certain things that they're required to disclose on the seller's disclosures forms.
Okay.
So, you know, if you find something and they're going to have to, you know, disclose it
Yeah.
anyways, you know, they're more willing to work through those specific things.
Okay.
And again, you want to make sure you get quotes from professionals.
Yeah.
That way you can get, a good grasp on what it's going to take to handle that issue.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, all incredible insight and advice. And definitely as someone like myself who is getting to that stage of, the next step in life and finding, a place of my own, this is all really valuable knowledge for me personally too.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad,
Yeah,
man.
awesome.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, go
Oh, I
ahead.
was just gonna say, or was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, no, no. I was just leading into the next question.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I mean, kind of switching gears a little bit from like direct real estate conversations to just more, I want to talk about like just your mindset and the outlook that you have on life. I know that a little while ago off the record we were talking and you had this great perspective about like kind of establishing daily routines. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Initially, like back when I was in high school, I never really had a routine. I never really um, kind of thought of myself as that
Hmm.
person. Not because I didn't think that I couldn't do it. It's just almost I didn't want to do it,
Yeah.
right? Where as I started to get into the sales environment more, starting at AT&T and then going to the jewelry store and now working in real estate. Um, it's important to establish that because that's really the basis of your day, and you're going to have good days and bad days. But 9 times out of 10, if you planned your bad days, you can turn it into something more than just kind of what's at the surface.
What do you mean by that? Do you mind going a little deeper into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of when you think of a problem or an issue at hand,
Hmm.
and you have kind of a set plan for that issue rather than kind of moping about
Yeah.
it and saying, oh, this and that, I'm never going to get this done. That'll only feed into, I mean, I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. So the more you tell yourself that, the less likely that the problem or the issue is going to get solved. If you say, okay, I acknowledge it, um, and I need to get this done, and here's what I'm going to do, whether it's writing it out on a notepad or, setting it in your calendar on your iPad or your email or something like that. Just initiating that action and actually putting it on a piece of paper or in your computer or on your phone, um, that will it'll bring to surface those issues and how you can solve them a lot quicker and more efficiently.
I love that. And I mean, I'm a huge believer in the law of attraction too. So, exactly what you said. And, for anyone listening who might not be familiar with it, basically, it's just that we attract what we put out into the world. So whether that's good things or bad things, right? Like when you're super negative, it's kind of like maybe that's the day that you hit all the red lights when you're driving and you spill your coffee and your food you know takes 3 hours at the restaurant, whatever. But when it's like you're positive and you're putting out that frequency, you're drawing those positive experiences to your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I saw a long time ago. It was like a motivational video, and it was this guy. I believe he was in the Navy,
Okay.
and he was talking about every day. He would make his bed in the Navy, so that transpired into his civilian life, and every day he would make his bed. So that's, I guess, a good part of my routine. To see if it helps you, but it definitely helped me. But every day when I make my bed, even if I have a bad day, I go home to a made bed,
Yeah.
right? So, um, just kind of initiating that and doing that first little bit of action and taking accountability can go a long way, um, even on your bad days. Some people will just kind of transpire from that first action that they do in the morning, whether
Mhm.
it's, waking up and, oh my gosh, I have to do this, I have to do that. And then you skip breakfast and then you don't take a shower, something like
Yeah.
that. Those things start to have a domino effect. But if you can wake up, you can make your bed, you can, do those constant accountability things that sometimes people will forget about.
Yeah,
Then it really sets forth for kind of uh, taking the day, by the gills there. So,
definitely.
yeah, I would say a big thing is just set those things in the morning that are kind of like a morning ritual to you. Whether it's having a cup of coffee, listening to a little bit of music, reading a book, um, even if it's 15 minutes. If you can do that and hold yourself accountable before you start your day, you'll have a much more impactful day.
Definitely. I love that kind of the intentionality of setting up your day and like setting the tone for the day and just getting, small things done. It kind of gives you that momentum to carry into everything else you have going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So I know, Lucas, you kind of mentioned a few things like making your bed, maybe getting a cup of coffee, but with your ritual, your morning ritual, what are a few things that you specifically like are always doing to get in that mindset?
So, like I said, I make my
Hmm.
bed. Once I've, had my cup of coffee, made my breakfast, then the first thing that I'll do is go through my emails, see yesterday, what I did, before I went to bed, and how is that transpiring into the next day.
Okay.
Um, I'll usually take a solid hour to, go through, read my emails, check my social media, respond, and just get on track with what I was doing the day before, and then after about roughly that 9 o'clock point, where I've kind of had everything set in, I've gotten on my laptop, I've gotten on my computer, then I'll go into cold calls.
Okay.
So for me, it's like I I know a lot of people and a lot of realtors work off of a referral basis, but I feel like it's important to make new connections as
Yeah.
well. So I call expired listings, I call for sale by owners, and I see what kind of value I can provide to them. Even if I can't provide it to them, perhaps I can in the
Yeah.
future, and it's just another connection made. So, I will have like a set amount that I'll call throughout the week, and I may divvy it up differently. Maybe do 25 one day and do 45 the next,
Okay.
right? Um, so as long as I hold myself to that number, I find that I'm able to get that extra deal at the end of the month, or I'm able to push my business further down the line, where I may talk to someone I'm not able to help them now, and I could maybe help their cousin or their aunt or
Yeah.
their uncle in the future. And it was just that phone call of reaching out and being able to assist is kind of, I guess, the mind frame of a realtor. You're constantly trying to make these connections,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you want to be careful because you don't want to juggle too much at once, where you can't provide enough value for your clients.
Right.
So, um, when I get to the point of where I have a full business at hand, then I kind of slow it down a little bit on my cold calls, and maybe I'll focus more on my marketing,
Yeah.
right? Or I'll focus more on, different aspects. So,
Definitely. And, throughout our whole conversation, you've said, providing value and talked about wanting to provide value to others. And I think, that's so important because we live in a world where, more times than not, we're always kind of thinking about what's in it for us and, you know, all
absolutely.
those kind of things. What, was there like a specific moment in your life or your career where you're like, I just want to give value? Or is that just always been something that's been like the focus of you?
Well, um, I guess growing up, I wasn't such a helpful person. Not that I wasn't helpful, I would, but like only if I was being
Okay.
asked. I've like kind of how we had the conversation earlier, being comfortable, being
Yeah.
uncomfortable. I think that was a good turning point for me in terms of being able to reach out to people and kind of had that personal level talk, where we're able to get down to what might be at hand, right?
Right.
Depending on people's situations and things like that. it's tough to break into a mindset where you're like, oh, all I want to do is help, but maybe that person doesn't need that help right now, right?
Right.
So I think it's feeling out the situation and knowing that, hey, this, I can count on this guy if I need this. Um, is kind of, I guess, the breaking point of where I want to be in my
Yeah.
business. Because it allows for like deeper conversation where, you're a lot of times I hear agents, oh, my client won't do this for me or won't do that. It's like, well, you work for them,
Right.
and it's important to, be able to assist as much as you can, but not be overwhelming at the same time. And I'm not saying that I'm 100% perfect by any means. There's times where, I'll be juggling around stuff, and I may or may not show it, depending on, how everything's going in the process. But my job is to make it, the least amount or the least stressful experience for my buyer or my seller when it comes to the transaction of their home.
I love that because I mean it's already such a stressful process, whether you're buying or selling. So like to have an expert like yourself to walk you through it and to support you and to just help make it a smooth transaction is really probably, you know, priceless.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I would say that was probably my turning point.
Okay.
Being able to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because sometimes those conversations are
Yeah.
hard, but the more that you get into those conversations, the just like anything else, the there's a good saying I'll throw in there. I know I've been throwing a couple in there, but the harder you work, the luckier you get, right?
Yeah.
Or at least it seems that way. Um, so, if you're able to provide value without being such a, like you said,
Yeah.
salesy and, in your face and all I want is the transaction, it's not about that. It's about, and 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get rich off of one transaction. You want to be referred,
Yeah.
again, where it comes to, agents being in a referral business, I think that's great. I'm not at that point in my business yet where I can base everything off referrals. Um, I think it's really cool. It's a great approach for a lot of agents, but yeah, at some point that would be great, to have kind of a hands-free business where they're like, Lucas is my
Yeah.
guy. When it comes to real estate, I've got a contact. So
Definitely.
uh, yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, Lucas, it sounds like you're laying the foundation to get to that point. You know, you're establishing those relationships. And again, the thing that I really want to drive home to everyone listening, these relationships that Lucas is creating, they're genuine. You know, he genuinely cares about everyone he's connecting with and really wants to provide value. It's not, you know, a fake kind of networking thing. It's really genuine and true to him. So, you know, I know by continuing to do that, you're going to build that foundation that gives you that referral base and kind of lets it be more of like a passive approach
yeah, absolutely.
for sure. And so, yeah, anyone that's listening, because you do real estate just in Michigan, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
Southeast Michigan. Yeah.
Southeast Michigan. So if you're listening, you're in Southeast Michigan. Lucas 100% would recommend him. A great guy, super knowledgeable, and you know someone that can make your experience in a stressful time, you know, doing something stressful, very smooth and seamless. Where could people like reach out to you? Like, do you want to like drop your socials or
Yeah.
whatever's best? What's best to get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got my Facebook page and my Instagram page. It's Lucas Winkler Realty, no spaces, no caps.
Okay.
My email, if anybody wants to reach out, is lucas.winkler@kw.com. I usually respond within 24 hours. Other than that, if you go to my social pages, my phone number, all that stuff is on there as well. Um, yeah, this has been an awesome experience. Thanks so much for having me on, Zach.
Yeah, of course. And you know, for anyone listening, I'll put all of Lucas's socials and his email in the description, so you know you don't have to try to write it down when he talks about it. You can find it there. But definitely check out Lucas. And even if like you're not in the market now, you know, just might be someone to keep in mind down the road, or just like even for me, Lucas is an expert in his field. So even if I just have questions about the market or about property value or things I'm checking out, super, super great resource. And I'm sure he'd be more than happy to talk to anyone, about any of thing that we've talked about today or, housing specifically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Lucas, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with or any last message?
Just go out and get it. I mean, a lot of people, they look at things and they're like, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't have the time. I don't have this. I don't have that. We have enough time to think about it. So just go out and get it. Enjoy it's life. Everybody lives it. Everybody makes mistakes and everybody, everybody, really, really, really just wants to find that thing that they're passionate about. So I was lucky to do it with real estate and be happy to help anybody with any future transactions.
Awesome. I love it. So yeah, go out there and go get it. Learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And if anyone is in the market to sell their house or to buy a house in the Southeast Michigan area, Lucas is your guy. Check him out. But Lucas, thank you so much for stopping by. It was great talking to you.
Thanks, Zach. We'll talk soon.